People don't always necessarily remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. So if we can navigate our burnout and know how to set some boundaries, then one of the most difficult things I think many of us have is being able to say no.
It needs to be either yes or no.
Be at ease with yourself and say no and allow the guilt to come in, experience it, and then let it go again.
If you're 50-50, you're not going to survive. You're not going to make it. That's where you get burned out, right?
You never know what somebody's going through. And, we're all battling things on our personal side or professional side. So it's being able to be empathetic and understanding as a leader while still maintaining goals and achieving them for your team as a whole. You can't motivate somebody. They have to want it. Like, how many of us set New Year's resolutions? We're super motivated.
Understanding what motivates people is maybe one of the most important things you can do as a leader. If you could go back and give your younger self advice, what would it be? And it does not have to be financial advice. Welcome to today's PlanAssist Podcast, where we interview successful business owners or business leaders with the goal of helping you make better financial decisions. PlanAssist is built around first principle thinking and focuses on building and maintaining wealth. And at its core, we really try to help you answer yes to 3 questions. Is your lifestyle aligned with your income? Is your income diversified and resilient? And are you making progress in both? And though those are asked individually, if you're running a business, those are just as important as running a business. So that's our goal. And today we're going to interview Jacqueline Powell, or have a conversation with, might be a better way to word it. And she is now founder of Powell 2 Empowerment, a motivational speaker and positive psychology coach. She's graduated from or has a certification from John Maxwell Leadership Program, and her background spans from leadership, sales, coaching, public speaking. But what really stands out is she really helps businesses kind of grow through challenges that they have with basically making sure they're confident, but also clear on kind of what's next step. So she helps small businesses kind of in those really critical times in a business's growth. So today we'll have a fun conversation around her journey from corporate world into entrepreneurship and personal development. So is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you did a fantastic job.
That's awesome. It always makes us sound really good when we take your LinkedIn profile and summarize it, isn't it?
I was like, it sounds familiar.
I know. We're going to have a fun conversation because Jacqueline and I have a very similar background in this. Am I pronouncing your name right?
You are? Yeah, thank you.
Good. So we have a very similar background in the sense of kind of corporate into entrepreneurship. So those of you listening to this, if you have done that, you know that is a very unique and challenging experience. And I'll kind of just with one word sum up, it's probably the most humbling experience that I ever went through. So with that, I always kick these off with the same question just to keep things interesting. And I ask every guest, if you could go back and give your younger self advice, what would it be? And it does not have to be financial advice. It can be whatever advice you'd give your younger self, say 20 years ago.
20 years ago, I was hoping you would pick my younger self further, and I don't like the math that it only takes.
You pick whatever time frame you did. I'm just throwing a number out.
Right.
I shouldn't do that. I should just let people kind of go through a number. So whatever time frame you want to give your younger self, you give it.
Right? I mean, 20 years ago brings us back to the 90s, doesn't it? That doesn't seem like it should be mathing all that well. My younger self, regardless of the age, whether I was in my 20s or teens, would 100% be, you survive the most difficult times in your life. When you're in them, you're not sure how to get through one more day. But challenges are going to come, and everything you thought you had laid out, all your plans that you thought were going to be perfectly executed, are tossed upside down. But it's still an incredible journey. So it's keep going, and know that you make it through 100% of the tough days, because
that's great advice. And basically enjoy the journey, right? I mean, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Absolutely. I tell people, I'm like, I love who I am today because of everything that I went through. And they're like, oh, if you could go back and erase or change things, would you? I was like, absolutely not. They were tough. They were very, very difficult. But I think without them, I wouldn't be who I am.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. I think when we kind of go back and really start thinking about some of the stuff we go through. And from a financial perspective, one of the things that I really try to help people think through is at the core, I actually wrote a book called Plan Assist, and it has three principles. It has have a plan, be diversified, seek counsel. Those are kind of the three big buckets, right? And the have a plan part, that does not mean some 45-page PDF where it lays out every step of your financial life, even though that might be part of it, but that's not a plan for the future. That's more connecting dots of where you're at. The plan is much more shorter focused in the sense of what are the 2 or 3 things that you absolutely want to get done in the next 6, 9, 12 months, and then be really committed to doing that and knock it out. So if it's to pay off a credit card, it's get out of debt, it's whatever that, increase your 401k contributions. It doesn't matter. And again, even if you're running a business, it's the same thing in the sense of, okay, what are we going to focus on? And then once you do that, you pick another three. Well, if you do that for 10 years, that's 20, 25 things. It'll make a massive difference in your net worth and in your finances.
Absolutely.
So it kind of grows off that. So with that, let's start the conversation off, kind of shifting gears a little bit. In what are you seeing out there? So kind of give kind of a high level summary. You do keynote speaking for organizations, so they're bringing in their top salespeople. So one of the big things you're trying to do, they probably bring in lots of people, but one of them is going to be salespeople. What are you seeing in the marketplace, and kind of what are you seeing big opportunities and challenges with the businesses you're working with?
My main focus is overcoming burnout, the mental resilience, because we're always in that hustle and that drive, that one more email, one more phone call, one more this, one more that. The running joke in my corporate job was, somebody would be going in for brain surgery and just prop my laptop up. I'll keep the emails going. We don't know when to stop. And, we push through, being overwhelmed, and we don't know how to navigate it. And I think it all boils down to the person in the mirror. So if we can navigate our burnout and know how to set some boundaries, then one of the most difficult things I think many of us have is being able to say no. I know there's a number of us between, the people that I meet in 1 Million Cups, my Toastmasters, everything like that. It doesn't matter the walk of life. We're always like, yes, I'll help you. Yes, I'll take on that role. Yes, I'll volunteer here. And we just keep adding to our plate, but our plate doesn't get any bigger. It just gets mounted higher, like a Thanksgiving dinner. And something has to give. So I think my talks and going in, I did a lunch and learn yesterday with an amazing company. And we just talked about, your perspective and how to interact with customers and how to navigate some mental resilience. Like when stress comes in, we can't avoid the stress, or the burnout sets in, we can't avoid it, but we can learn to navigate it and overcome it. So I think that's one thing, that it doesn't matter your industry, your position, every walk of life can experience the burnout. Even if you're working from home or you're a stay-at-home parent, there's definitely some challenges and some mental resilience to be learned and strengthened.
That's good. And so talk to me a little bit about the learning to say no. Like one of the things that I learn is, or one of the things that I find and have learned is no is a really hard thing to say, but it's a very important word to use. Not, I'll think about it, not let me go through, not no pause in it, not okay, not yes, not maybe. It needs to be either yes or no. And if you say maybe, that just creates more pylon.
Yeah. Yeah. We struggle. It's funny that, especially in the sales world, or, being an entrepreneur, they're like, everyone encourages you to accept the no because that's one no closer to the yes. But nobody tells you how to say no on the other side of that same coin. And so I think it's important that, exactly what you said, don't say maybe, because you're delaying the inevitable. And when we do say no, then here comes the guilt to settle in because we said no, so we switch out the baggage for something else. So I think it's empowering people to be at ease with yourself, to say no to something and be okay. Like, you've said no, that situation is done. Like, that's that's packed up, that's back in their court, and you need to move on. And, I've had to say no to certain things in Toastmasters. It's volunteer, and I absolutely adore the community that I work with, the expanded community. We're like 2/3 of Florida now. And it took me a long time to say no without feeling guilty. And this probably this last 6 months, being able to say no to something is like, okay, I would say yes, but my time is really valuable with things over here, and that's going to take me away. So it's weighing out the benefits for you directly. At the end of the day, it's your business, your time. Your time is valuable, and how is that going to navigate or be pulled away from if you say yes to something else? So being able to say no comes from a place of empowerment. It's having the confidence in yourself, and I think that's why I say be at ease with yourself and say no, and allow the guilt to come in, experience it, and then let it go again.
So one of the things that I'm a huge YouTuber. That's why I actually started my YouTube channel, because I don't watch TV or anything. I pretty much watch YouTube. And there is a short clip of Mr. Wonderful. I can't remember his name. Anyway,
Kevin O'Leary.
Kevin O'Leary. There's a clip of Kevin O'Leary where he's talking about signal noise, and he's talking about Stephen Jobs. And he said that if you're going to be successful, that is the metric. It's how much signal versus how much noise do you have, right? And he said Jobs was like 80-20, and he was a nightmare to work with, right? But he was 80-20 kind of signal noise. He said if you're 50-50, you're not going to survive. You're not going to make it. It's just, that's where you get burned out, right? Because you have so many maybes in your life, so many things that are just noise, right? But he said that Musk is 100%. Like he said he's the only person he's ever run into that is 100% signal versus noise, right? And the point becomes, it summarizes what you just said about being able to say no. That those guys don't have maybes in their world. It's either yes because it's signal, or it's no because it's noise.
Yeah, very much. It's because they see the writing on the wall with it. It's black or white type thing, right? There's no gray area when it comes to those decision making situations. And I think as we are aware of that, and as we see that as a skill that we want to build upon, then that kind of negates the guilt, right? You're like, that is signal or noise. And if it's noise, it's the same thing as going to, there's a fine line of balancing networking and not working. Right? Like you're like, I get invited to, 20 different networking events a week. I choose which ones I go to, and I say no to the rest because it's a fine line of networking and not working. So again, I used to feel guilty saying, no, I can't go to this one. No, I can't go to that one. Now it's like, I have to catch up on this. It's for the benefit of me, my business, and still balancing family time. So, when you're saying yes to a bunch of things, there's things that break. There's things that have
No,
to
that's
give.
right. So I can't agree with you more. I think it sounds so simple, but the ability to say no and focus on those 2 or 3 key things that are really important to whatever it is. If it's family, then that's your signal, right? If it's build your business, what are the 2 or 3 things you're supposed to be doing? If you get good at identifying that and no to everything, and then yes to those and no to everything else, I think that's what causes people to be able to work 60 hours a week and not get burnt out, right? I think the burnout is the maybes. If you get a lot of maybes in your life, you're going to feel an enormous amount of stress and overwhelmness. But if it's just, here's my 2 things I'm focusing on, everything else becomes irrelevant.
Yeah, because it's like you toss those maybes in a backpack. You're like, I'll deal with it later. That backpack becomes very
Yeah,
heavy.
but they come back, right?
Right? So you're carrying them around until you commit to it either way, whether you want
That's
to,
right.
say the yes, or whether you want to, say the no and get rid of it, you're carrying it around. So you're exactly right. The burnout, the stress becomes from everything that you're tossing in that backpack, and that you're just not dealing with. Like, that difficult email you have to send or whatever. You're like, oh, delay the confrontation or delay the something that's uncomfortable to you. Until you deal with it, you carry it around.
I deal with it all the time with clients, though. As a financial advisor, it is one of my more frustrating parts of my job, because people don't want to sit down with financial advisors, right? I'm not your dentist. To quit hating sitting down with me. I was like, yes, you feel like it. You know what I mean? It's like, no. We're not, we're just focusing on the 2 or 3 things that's important. But they're a lot. It's a better in my book or my clients because I don't have a lot. And it's not because I'm a great financial advisor necessarily, but I'm later in my career. So my clients have a tendency to be a little more selected and a little more relationship driven, right? So I don't have like a big book, but I do see it still periodically where clients just don't want to address stuff. And that becomes a challenge for me as even the professional to help them.
Well, that's the ultimate vulnerability, right? Is your finances. Like I would rather discuss anything else in the world than finance. That's the most uncomfortable thing. And that's the most, right? Most people find they would rather you could draw topics out of a hat. And the minute you get to discussing finances, that's a completely different level of vulnerability.
Yeah, that's true.
And not everybody is comfortable because you're now dissecting. They feel like you're dissecting a history of decisions, whether they were the best ones at the time or the worst ones at the time. They're felt for years. And I think people have that's why marriages struggle. That's, they have a hard time communicating about finances within a marriage even. And that's your best friend, that's your life partner. But it's hard to discuss that for some relationships. I've seen it numerous times and it's tough. The running joke is, I protect my Amazon shopping list and my finances type thing. Like those are the two things that I'm really vulnerable. Nobody wants to, disclose I'll give you my phone and you can go through everything else, photos, videos, history, everything like that, but don't go through the Amazon account. Like,
Yeah, that's
right?
good. That's so true. Oh my gosh. And though we're talking about an individual, I just want to reiterate this is true running a company. Like it is very important that your team, that there's a certain amount of vulnerability when it comes to sharing numbers with your sales group, right? Sharing numbers with when I was in corporate, which we can have a conversation around. I shared a lot of information because I felt like they needed to know the why I'm doing stuff, right? Where a lot of times people are like, well, I'm just going to do it and they just need to trust me. And I'm like, that doesn't work very good. So the same vulnerability and the same ability to share and the same importance of kind of addressing the numbers. It doesn't matter what you're at a personal level, at a business level, at a CEO level. You got to address the numbers. The numbers are the black and white, unfortunately, the truth
Yeah,
telling piece.
it's cumulative of everybody's decisions, right? Whether you're sales, whether you're, HR or finance, it's a cumulative of decisions across the company. So I think the transparency is important because then everybody sees the picture of where we are, where we want to go to, or the struggles that we're experiencing in the middle. So the transparency, I think, is important because everybody's been contributing to those numbers. Everybody needs to contribute to the goals or the forecasting. And I think that's the more open a business is about that with their team, then I think the more success that they can have because they see it. They see it for what it is, the good, the bad, the ugly. And then everybody can adjust course, accordingly.
And for years and years and years, I'm much older than you are, but for years, the world I grew up in, it was information as needed.
Hmm.
Right. So if you were in a department, like when I was at Schwab for a decade and I ran a Schwab office, they shared the three numbers that mattered to me. That was it. Okay. So I didn't see, lots of numbers. I saw, two or three numbers. Right. And though it worked, I think that's less and less valuable because people want to know kind of how's everything coming together at the top.
Yeah, I mean, I get that it's very difficult when you have a larger company or something like that, but it's small, medium, if it's, handful of people type thing, even 20 people, depending on your team and how everybody interacts and everything like that together, then, I think that's on a per business basis. But I think the more you can empower your team with all of the knowledge, then, you're just setting them up for even more success.
I
And
think
if
that
they're
I agree.
and
So
if they're not
so
on board, then I mean, then you kind of see the writing on the wall with certain employees, right?
And if you can't trust them with the numbers, if they can't decipher the numbers without reading something wrong into them, then
Yeah,
again that tells you another thing about the employee, right? That's the person. So it becomes how do you deal with it?
absolutely.
Okay, so the next, do you have anything to finish up on that kind of numbers and yes, no, or anything you want to?
I'm good.
Okay, so I want to move to the next big question or the next big conversation that I thought about having with you. there's a lot of people that have had that experience that you and I did, where we spent our first 15, 20 years in corporate America and left corporate and went into becoming entrepreneurs, either soloist entrepreneurs or starting a business, et cetera, right? And depending on how much time we spent in corporate America, and I'll argue it kind of doesn't matter what company you work for because they all have the same kind of culture, right? I mean, there's a little difference from company to company, but not much, right? I mean, if you look at kind of how's it set up, and I used to debate, and I'll kind of set this up, and then I'll pass it to you. So one of the things that I'd have a conversation. Most of my career was managing salespeople. Okay, so that was not that hard, in my opinion, right? It was what I do. So again, it wasn't hard for me because I just shared numbers. Here's what it is. You're successful. You're unsuccessful. And about, I don't know, 20 years in, later in my career, I don't know, this would have been 2005 or something, 2000. Anyways, I took a corporate job in headquarters at H&R Block, okay? And one of the groups that I started to lead was a group of young 20 something, 20 to 30 something on a call center setting, right? I mean, they were like and their job was still somewhat sales, but it was still corporate, right? So I had corporate, kind of a bunch of corporate 20 to 30-year-olds. And Jacqueline, oh my gosh, I would just my meetings with them were almost borderline hilarious because I would like start laughing. I'm like, seriously, I am not your professor. When I would give them grades, they thought work was like college, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is how we graded everyone. So A, B, C, D, F, right? I mean, so everyone got grades and everyone got their 1, 2, 3, 4s, and we were forced to bell curve everyone. So it was very, very difficult, right? From a discussion perspective, especially for me, because it was either you hitting your numbers or not. And
Yeah.
so when I'd give someone a 3 as an example, they would literally like melt down. My gosh, I'm melting down. And well, I did like this. What they would call extra work, I would call extra credit. I'm like, you think of that as extra credit with your professor. That's like part of your job.
Oh my
So
God.
so it was fascinating to see kind of both sides of the view, right? I mean, so that's a little bit exaggerated, but not much, okay? Not by much, right? I mean, that's so if you're like in a headquarter role, because I spent 2 periods in headquarter roles, so at Block and at Ameriprise, that group thinks like college students, even though they might be 50 years old, doesn't matter. They think in terms of what's my rating, how much extra credit do I get, how much, all that kind of stuff, right? They don't realize it. Trust me. There was a lot of I hate you, Tim. So when I had those conversations, but that is how they think in that world. It's a little bit different in the field, in the sales side, because it's a little more dynamic and a little less hide behind something, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
here's 2 or 3 numbers. But then I'll kind of finish on this. So that was kind of my corporate experience. Then when I left and started Core Wealth Consultants, I swear I thought I could just drop into it and kind of go. And I was just shocked by how hard it was when the music stopped, is the best way I can describe it. And all of a sudden, every decision that I was making, I had nobody pushing back on, right? So
Yeah.
I was used to having like legal and compliance and marketing and everyone kind of saying, no, you can't do this, can't do that. And all of a sudden I'm hiring people and saying, I want to do this. And they're like, yes, we'll do it. And then I just wasted massive amounts of money because I didn't have these guardrails. So it took me about 3 or 4 years to figure out, oh, I got to get some guardrails. So that's my experience from kind of corporate to
Mhm.
HR. Now I've been doing this for 5 years, so or 10 plus years. So I have a little bit of, I've kind of settled in and kind of have my pieces. And
Right.
so that kind of sets you up. You spend the next 5 minutes explaining kind of your experience and or what you think.
I mean, so my time in the corporate world was slightly different. The company that I worked for was very small for the first couple years, and then they acquired 2 other companies here in the US, and the culture changed drastically. So, but my favorite part, like in the corporate job that I had, I covered half the US for sales. And then I was also in charge of all of the US production. So I worked with companies around the globe, did all of our logistics, and forecasting and pricing and everything like that. So I kind of wore two hats with it.
Very
But
different hats, though. I don't mean to interrupt you,
yeah.
but those aren't like similar leadership roles. Those are very different roles. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I love both of them because of the differences between
Uh-huh.
them, but they were both incredibly time consuming. Like they both required a lot, and different approaches, right? Like you're working with people in different parts of the world. So they react differently to certain things. They run on different times. I'm meeting with a gentleman at 8 o'clock at night, our time, because he has to do that when he drops his kids off after school in the morning before he goes into the company in New Zealand, right? So that's his only little moment of time and window is 8 o'clock at night for me. So there's different demands on it. But my favorite
Interesting.
part of my corporate job, outside of, meeting all these incredible people around the world, was working with our sales teams throughout the US in different states. And so I was like, I love working with them. But the business that I started, wanting to be a speaker on stage and share a message to let people know that regardless of what they're going through, they're not alone. So kind of a motivational speaker and being a certified positive psychology coach. So I could go in and coach either people one-on-one or businesses. There was no transition. Like there was none of what I was doing here, I made into a job or my business. It was very similar, but it's not like I worked in the wine industry and I started my own little wine shop. There was no connections.
How'd you
So
decide that? So tell your story. How'd you switch? How'd you decide to go from corporate role into like positive mental attitude kind of thinking and keynote speaker?
from a few different avenues, I guess. Yeah, it was like leaving one realm and going to a completely different realm and
Yeah, you were.
rebuilding. So when I would work with the different sales teams throughout the US, I would fly in, I'm an airport warrior while they're a windshield warrior, right? Like they spend all day driving around to accounts. I'm in the airport flying up, working with a sales team all week, fly back at the end of the week type thing. But that was my favorite part was working with the sales teams. You're riding with a sales rep, you're learning about their story, their interpretation of the company. You're learning about their market area and what drives them and stuff. And then you're meeting all these incredible customers. And I am a sports fanatic, so I would see any sports memorabilia anywhere on them in their car, whatever, and I instantly pull on that. So now we're joking about sports, so there's good banter going back and forth, we're laughing, and we're doing the job, and we're selling. So the whole entire experience is fun because I know what it's like when they're like, oh, here comes a supplier. I've got to drive them around. They're going to be boring. They're going to be driving. They're not going to be happy about anything. I wanted the complete opposite experience. Like, sales should be fun, right? You're out there providing something and you're getting to meet all these incredible people. And there was a number of times over a few years where one of the sales reps would be like, look, we were supposed to stop into this next account. The buyer that I normally work with isn't here. The buyer that's there, I don't have a great relationship with. So we're going to skip them. I was like, challenge accepted. Let's go in, right? Like this is where I thrive. I was like, we don't have to bring the product in. Just let them know that the supplier wants to meet them and thank them. Like our product is still in their store. It doesn't matter which buyer is sitting there. I want to go in and thank them. And there was one time that I was in East Lansing and the gentleman had this tiny little Spartan logo on his lapel. And I was like, oh, dude, I might be in East Lansing, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And instantly guards down, we joked, we bantered, back and forth about college football, and it was great, to the point where I got an email afterwards from the sales rep going, I now have the confidence to go in there regardless of who's sitting there because he will have a conversation with me. He understands the appreciation on our side now. So there's all those things. So that was my favorite part of my job, coming home and getting those emails like a week later, like, thank you so much, that was the best supplier meeting that I had with everybody, just driving around. Those were my favorites. So I was like, okay, how do I take that and make it into something? Like, so how can I still help people in their personal or professional lives and make that something. So that's, I joined Toastmasters. I found a positive psychology course. I learned about John Maxwell, so certified with the speaking, coaching, and training with John
And that's
Maxwell.
a big deal. People don't realize how hard it is to get certified at John Maxwell. That is a serious accomplishment. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. And I loved it. It was an incredible time. People from all over the world flew in for Maxwell's leadership in Orlando here, and it was absolutely phenomenal. I was like, this is where I belong. This is what, lights the soul on fire, is helping people, and this is a huge catapult for me for it. And so that's when I kind of solidified that that's what I want to do. But it was like you and I said earlier, I left one realm and just entered a new one and had to, recreate the wheel for me, so to speak. So it's wearing hats that I didn't know existed. It's wearing hats I didn't know how to put on. It's figuring out how to do things. I was not a social media person. I would post a few things, a handful of times a quarter type thing, or maybe a couple times a month at most. Now it's like you have to do something regularly. It's, that's part of the job, is to put on social media, to put out there that you're an expert in your field. And so outside of doing all the academic work and that mileage, is I pull on my own experience and how I work through those difficult things in my life, and what I used. And that's what I wrote a book about, is all the tools that I used to pull myself through two different divorces, one of which was incredibly difficult, and starting my career over a couple times. And it's letting people know that they're not alone going through it. Like, all the tools might not work for you, but a handful of them might. One might work this time, another one might work that time. So it's being able to give all of those things to people and help them. So that was kind of just the basis of transitioning it over.
You told the story when we were talking last week about the women in a whole family got a hold of your book on Amazon. Tell that story. That was a good one. That's a really interesting one.
Yeah, it was incredibly surreal that so I self-published my book on Amazon, and so I did everything myself. And I recommend it. It was a great process through Amazon. They take a little bit more royalties because they're doing everything for you, but I don't have to sit with 100 boxes of books in my garage and mail them out one by one. So and because of that, my book was available around the world, and a woman in Finland reached out to me and said that after she read my book, she bought it for all the women in her family, because she thought it would help them either with what they're going through now, or maybe down the road. It's just nice to have a quick little book to reference back to, be like, okay, what were some of those journal prompts, or how did she practice gratitude, or how did she get through certain things. So it was just nice to know that there's a group of women in Finland now that have my book. So that's pretty
That
cool.
that is so cool. That's such a great story. So to unpack that whole, okay, now you go from this corporate job with two really distinct roles into the currently you're doing coaching. What would be your businesses? Like, who would be like your primary, like if you took your top 10 clients, you don't need to name them obviously, but what would those look like, right? I mean, are they like small businesses with 20 employees? Are they solo practices? What's kind of the profile?
Yeah, so far I've worked with, medium to smaller business and solopreneurs. So going in and doing a lunch and learn yesterday, there was 10 employees. So it was a great intimate setting, but I also offer being able to go in and do kind of like the level 10 third party of a meeting. So being able to go in and not have a dog in the fight, for lack of a better term, in certain things that go on in meetings, keeping a meeting on track, helping everybody. So that could be 25 people. I have a contract with a company, a very well-known organization, where it's 25 executives. So coaching them twice a month just on not only sales, but how to interact with their members a little bit better, kind of upping the ante as leadership. They can up the ante because then they can treat those that they're in charge of even better, that they'll treat those that they're in charge of even better. It's that trickle down from the top with handling it better. Because I think at the end of the day, my core message all the time, and I see it all the time on social media, is you never know what somebody's going through. And we're all battling things on our personal side or professional side. So it's being able to be empathetic and understanding as a leader while still maintaining goals and achieving them for your team as a whole. So that's kind of the main thing that I focus on around positive psychology, is then I think that can help any size of group. It's a matter of being open to hearing it.
Yeah, that's so true. And you still got to hit your numbers, but if you come at it from a positive perspective versus a negative perspective, it's just two different stories.
Yeah, I was asked yesterday, how do I motivate people? And I think it's a great question, but I think it's a bit of a loaded question in a way. It's like you can't motivate somebody; they have to want it. Like how many of us set New Year's resolutions? We're super motivated, but we're the ones that take it away from ourselves. So I think as a leader, how do you motivate people? Well, I find out what makes them hungry. What wins do they celebrate? Like what wins are important to them? Some people are reward driven. Some people want the spotlight. Like the minute they hit numbers, they want to be celebrated. Other people want to hit numbers and have a quiet pat on the back, in private, like they're the behind the curtain success. So I think if you can, as a leader, if you can find out what drives them and what makes them hungry and what celebratory wins that they kind of thrive in, I think that's where you dig in. That's where you push them and that's where you incentivize them. It's not always a money thing or the thing like that, but I mean, heck, I was a member of this gym back when I lived in New Jersey, and they had all these lists of things that they would give you if you achieved X number of workouts, if you got perfect workouts. I mean, these were like little medallions the size of a nickel. And they had a point system. So the higher your point system, the different colored lanyard and all these things. I tell you, I had every color of lanyard. I have every little nickel size medallion. I got the perfect score t-shirt. I was reward driven. Like I was going to be the one that came in with all the ribbons on type thing. It was like, that's what drives me. But there's other people there that they didn't have anything. They were members for years, but that wasn't key for them. So I think everybody operates differently. And as an effective leader, you need to find out from your team. It's an honest one-on-one conversation. Be like, let's say you hit all your numbers. How do you want to celebrate you? How would you celebrate your perfect day? You know?
That is such a great point and a great question to sit down with. I had 7 regionals reporting to me at one particular time, and to kind of build on that what do they want? And there was one of them that I was just constant fighting with. I mean, we were just like at each other's throats, just on and off for 18 months, 2 years. And we did a Kobe. I don't know if you know, it's one of those personality test things, but Kathy Kobe and they used to, measure, and they put them in 4 things. And it was so fascinating because other 6 regionals, they were more like I was. So like I didn't need a real tight agenda for a conference call. I didn't need a lot of numbers. I would summarize numbers, right? A 1-page document. I could let a call go off track or down a rabbit hole and not feel frustrated or challenged, right? Well, once we did and I didn't know this, okay, so this was way later in my career. I should have known it way earlier, but this one regional, he was very metric driven, extreme, like almost like to the complete right on the Kathy Kobe. Even Kathy said that it was unusual for someone to have that focused on the metric side of their lives. And the minute I understood that, so I had someone like you that was talking to me, and they said, here's how you have to communicate with him. Well, if I was doing a quarterly review, as an example, right, and we're talking about quarterly numbers and da da da, for the one group, I didn't give them. I had a 30-page PowerPoint, okay, but I didn't give everyone the 30 pages. I'd give them 2 pages, right? Here's the things that matter. Here's what we're going to talk through. Da 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 da. But what I started to do was prior to the meeting, I would give him the 30-page PowerPoint. And
Absolutely.
and it was so fascinating because once he had all the numbers he needed, our relationship changed almost overnight.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was almost like, so to your point, understanding what motivates
Mhm.
people is maybe one of the most important things you can do as a leader.
And those conversations never happen.
They don't.
Like or if they do, they rarely do. And things
And
can
they
change.
almost happen by accident. So they don't,
Right.
that's even worse, right? Like for my case, I hate admitting it, but it wasn't like I was some smart reading a book. Oh, here's what I have to do. No, it was almost by accident, right? I mean, it was almost like an event that occurred and go through.
That or it happens at the moment it's almost too late. Like your
Yes,
employees tapped out,
no
they
question.
really dropped their pack, or the employer is getting ready to fire them, be like, this is the last straw. What do we need to do to be on the same page? Like now both parties are frustrated. It's tough to come back from that. There's emotional baggage to unpack. There's, well, you said this and you did that. So it needs to happen as early on in a stage as possible. Be like, look, no two people are the same. So why are we lumping everybody? I'm going to treat them all how I see they should be treated. I'm not saying, operate around with kid gloves on, but it's just honest dialogue. It's improving the communication. And if you can improve the communication, what doesn't improve after that?
And if you understand that as a leader, and you inherit employees, then you can kind of help them kind of get the most out of them. But if you're building a business, you need to also understand that, because as you hire people, if someone's going to fit into the culture, you have like, I can't change my personality. I am still high level. I mean, you can't force me to go through a 30-page PowerPoint because you want to go through a 30-page PowerPoint. I just, that's not, now all of a sudden I'm on the other side of it, and not happy and wound up, and you know what I mean? So you got to make sure that everyone's aligned, and that at least you're communicating. What would happen with this particular person was, I would tell him, I said, on the call, we're not going through that 30-page PowerPoint, just FYI. I said, I'm not changing the way I'm doing my calls so you can get frustrated and da 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 da. But we can have a one-on-one call
Mm-hmm.
after the power, after the call, or before the call, or a week later. I said, once you've digested those numbers, I'm happy to go through it one-on-one with you, but I'm not changing my leadership style.
Absolutely. I think that's part of the, to come full circle, that's part of the no, right?
No,
Like
that's right.
you still have to stay true to who you are to be an effective leader, because outside of that, then, it's kind of, you're faking it. And then nothing good comes of that. So, that gentleman could have his time to highlight, pull out the key areas of interest or concern in the 30 pages. Let's digest that. Then you and I can have our one-on-one and type thing. I think that is key right there, for any leadership to understand that, like you said, it's a two-way street.
Correct.
I don't want to sit there in our meeting with everybody, dissect all 30 pages to make you happy, because now 99% of the time it's going to frustrate everybody else on the call, because we're all sitting
Exactly.
there rolling our eyes
And
and like,
number one, me.
yeah, and you will be to blame. So that's definitely the two-way street, as to, okay, I'll help you, and I'll see you where you are, that you need this. I need you to see where I am, as with the group as well, that we're not going through all 30 pages.
And our point, so if someone's listening to this, our point, we're talking about metrics on this particular person, but it could be anything. It's to your point
Yeah,
about, it could be, I want to be rewarded and shown that I'm number one. I want just money. You know what I mean? I want to be, power. I want to be the next CEO of the company. So I want education. I mean, it just depends on what drives them. Understanding that, and then at least having those conversations is an important part of
right.
really getting the most out of people.
And that doesn't mean bend the knee and have a parade because somebody wants a plaque because they hit their numbers, but
Exactly.
it's finding a middle ground. It's
That's
finding
right.
a happy area that they'd be like, yeah, you know what? That would really make me feel good. Like if we're sitting here, a year from now, and you hit all your numbers and excelled in Q4, and you really drove us, what would be the one thing that you would appreciate? Because no one's going to say a pizza party. I'll promise you that.
No,
So all
exactly.
for all the leaders out there that think a pizza party solves it or celebrates it enough, that is 100% fake news.
And all the 360s that I did, do you do those, by the way? Just have you ever done the 360s with their employees? So,
No.
so I've probably done a dozen of them, where you send out surveys to not just the employees, but one level down, right? So to everyone that's kind of up in your chain, and then everyone kind of, you get this just incredibly painful, 5-page document on all the things you suck at.
All right.
and yeah, there is a section in there that says the stuff you're good at, but it's primarily focused on what you need to get better at, right? And one of the things that was just it didn't matter. I'm like, it's gonna come. I'd even tell my boss. I'd tell her. I can remember one of the last one I did. I told her. I said, I said, they're going to come back and say this. And sure enough, she goes, I can't believe it was like top two. And it was exactly what you just said on rewarding, recognizing success. I am not, my personality is not the numbers. I'm looking next week, next month. I don't care. Like we hit the numbers. Okay, now let's focus on the next month. I'm terrible with celebrating success, which again, it's my personality. So I have to try to balance that with other clients, you know what I mean? But at least I learned it too late in my career, unfortunately. But
There was somebody in the lunch and learn yesterday who, I guess, upon further discussion at the end, is the same. This person is already like, we're looking at numbers for this week. I'm already on next week. So to sit there and celebrate or to tell you good job all the time is not in this person's personality. So kind of what her and I had a conversation on was at the same time, you need to understand that your team is also going through other things, that they might not have a great relationship at home. Things might be tough somewhere else. That if you say, I really appreciate all the work you put through this week, regardless of the numbers, take the numbers out of it. But just be like, man, you showed up. You handled a lot of stuff this week. I really appreciate you. Like this is really this, it was outstanding. That might be the only good thing that is said to them that week. Like, I'm not saying that you only need to say it because you think somebody is coming from a difficult background or something like that.
oh,
But
right.
you don't know what they're going through, but you don't know how impactful that supportive or rewarding words could really mean to that person. That if things are tough at home for whatever reason or elsewhere in their life, that if that's the one shining moment, think how that could compound if things get better for them.
So I'll tell you the one thing that I learned that if anyone wants to try, but it really really worked. I don't use it insincerely, so I only use it when I mean it. So it's not like a just always end at the end. But instead of saying thank you, I always say I appreciate you. And I
Mhm.
always use you. I don't like I appreciate it. No, I appreciate you. And that really is that's way deeper thank you or I appreciate it. It's I mean, but again, you have to be careful because that needs to be used when you mean it. Because if you
Yeah.
use it too much, people know that too. Then it's not authentic.
Yeah, I also coach public speaking for homeschool students for the state of Florida, and I have a student who, in all honesty, was lacking quite a bit of self-confidence. So asking them to take a public speaking course, she was incredibly nervous because she didn't know what to expect. She's already, very self-conscious about a lot of things. And I would give her some work to do during the week, and she would come back and she would have knocked it out of the park. I was like, man, I really appreciate you for taking this seriously, for taking on something and stepping outside of your comfort zone. Like you, I don't know if you know how big this is. Like
Right.
this is incredible. And planting those little seeds of self-confidence, over the last 5, 6 sessions that we've had together, I mean, she's really like expanded
Blooming.
out and being
It's
able to sit up tall and read her speech or stand up tall and read her speech. Those little things truly help somebody and they carry that with them. Like I always see it written everywhere. It's like people don't always necessarily remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. So she might not remember all the little things that I've said to her, but she knew every time that we were finished a session, she was on cloud nine. She was super excited. Like she was very happy. So that,
no, it's
wanted to keep going.
It's huge. It's a massive thing. So I can't believe it. All right. So we're running out of time. We're running up on our end of our call. So, and I didn't get on the most important one that I love, so I'm gonna extend it just by 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Give me a quick high level summary of my favorite subject is AI. How do you see AI changing your kind of these businesses? How much do you see it being impacted? And we're not going to be able to get into big conversation on it, even though we could do a whole podcast on it. But I don't want to leave without at least touching on it.
Yeah, I think AI is incredible. And I think, used in the right way, I think everybody needs to understand that you just can't copy and paste personal information and have it regurgitated out. I think as long as you keep the human element in it, I use a couple different avenues of AI as, a secretary, bounce ideas off of, proofreading if I want to put something out, how to categorize things. So to me, it helps me categorize my day better. I work through things faster. I used to be the person that would stress over sending a difficult email. Like I'd be like, oh, leave it in a draft. I'll send it later. And now it's, I'll click the polish button. It's like, make it sound fancy. Boom. It's still my words. It's organized in a little bit more of a polished way. I have more confidence to send it out faster. So I think you have to embrace it. It's not going anywhere. It's only climbing at an extraordinary rate. But I think we need to be careful that we still keep the human element in it and to understand that there are security risks involved. So what you use it for in your business is, just there's so many places out there to get more knowledge on how to integrate AI into your system. There's an incredible company that I met through 1 Million Cups. It's AI Scalehound. And that's what he does. He teaches people how to integrate AI safely into your business. And I think companies like him are worth their weight in gold right now because we don't know what all the ins and outs of AI. That's his job. It doesn't matter whether you're a solopreneur or you have 100 people in your business or larger, you need to protect your business and you need to protect yourself. So getting the education because AI is not going anywhere. It's here to
No.
stay. It's here to grow. And I think if you can leverage it to make your business better, to make you better, to make you confident, whatever you need it for, use it. It's here. So I like it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what you just said is using it to be more productive, not necessarily to share personal information, but productivity is just incredibly powerful. And it really does sum up. So I want to kind of hit on this and then I'll kind of we'll do the closing is it does really sum up everything we talked about, right? Like in today's world, if I had AI, and I use my example again, it's just an example, but you could use any other scenarios. But if I have one person that reports to me that's real numbers driven, I can now with relative ease provide that person with more data information, and I'm not talking private info, but whatever's like available,
Yeah,
and I can summarize the other six, right? So I could literally personalize. That would have been almost impossible 10 years ago, right? You
yeah,
actually almost couldn't have done it because it just would not have been productive. Where today you actually can kind of pick and choose. You're sending an email out. How do you get your tone right? How do you reword it? All that kind of stuff. It's very valuable in the sense of everything we talked about helping you understand and utilizing. But again, it's still just more like an admin than it is kind of thinking
right.
for you.
Yeah, I think the key thing is to keep your human element in it. Like I've been using ChatGPT for gosh, over a year and a half now. But I only use her name is Nova. I had to name her that way when they take over the world to remember that I was nice and what
Right.
have you. But it's, I only use her for business things, bouncing ideas off of, helping me with this, helping me compose that email or whatever. So she understands the tonality in which I like in my and in conversing and in my emails. So I'll still use that, so I'll put everything in there and I'll be like, okay, can you rephrase it? This person is very direct and blah, blah, blah. So to me, I can get an email composed so much faster and I can send it with confidence and understand that that person will come back and continue on the dialogue. So for me, she's a great secretary. I still run
No,
everything back through
no,
myself.
I can't even tell people how much that is exactly that alone. If you don't do anything more than just what you described, that adds an hour a day to at least to me,
Oh yeah.
it adds insane productivity.
Yeah, or if I'm stuck for ideas on certain things, like, hey, I need to think about this. And it's to me as a solopreneur, I can't ask my dogs for some feedback on things. As supportive as they are, they're terrible coworkers.
Yes.
But I can bounce ideas off of, or if I'm questioning something, I don't understand a system that somebody shared with me, I can ask them, break it down and explain it so I don't have to go back and bother somebody to explain something for me. It's okay, I got it. Here it is, blah, blah, blah. I can now be a better partner, a better integrator, regardless of what somebody needs from me. I can do my job better because I can get deeper information instead of me going, Google, look up this, Google, look up that, and I might miss something. And again, I don't take it all as it's a be all end all as information, but I, you know, I like having a broad spectrum of information. I don't just use ChatGPT. I also, ask Gemini, there's Claude, there's Grok, they're coming up with different names in the alphabet all the time. So it's find what works for you and keep you in the equation is I think is the bottom line.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to finish it. Okay, so how do people get a hold of you and kind of again summarize what you do and who would reach out to you and then how would they get a hold of you?
Sure. So my everything, I'm pretty fortunate. So my email is Jacqueline at powell2empower.com. My website is Powell2Empower, and it's the number two. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, everything, all those social media platforms at Powell2Empower. I am on LinkedIn as Jacqueline Powell and would love to connect with everybody. So I'm a keynote or motivational speaker, a positive psychology coach, an author, and I work with individuals and businesses as a whole to help overcome burnout. I actually have a law enforcement or first responder keynote talk that I have that makes sure that they understand that what they do is thankful that I get to live the American dream because of them and everything like that. So it's kind of all built around the mental resilience. So if there's a individual or business out there looking for some support or guidance on how to level up the burnout, overcome the burnout and level up the mental resilience in their team, I'm the one they can call.
Which everyone needs at some point in time. I assure you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I've really appreciate the conversation. It's been wonderful. It's been fun.
Thank you, Tim. It's been
Thank
great.
you.
I appreciate you.